My neighbor said my security cameras invaded his privacy, so I took them down. Now his house has been robbed 4 times. I was standing in my driveway when I saw the police car pull up to my neighbor Raymond's house for the 4th time this month. My coffee cup shook in my hand as 2 officers stepped out and walked toward his broken front door. The frame was splintered where someone had kicked it in again. Raymond was pacing on his lawn with his phone pressed against his ear and his free hand pulling at his hair. His wife Linda sat on their porch steps with her face buried in her hands. I could hear her crying from 30 feet away. The officer pulled out a notepad and started writing while Raymond pointed at the damage. My stomach twisted into a knot as I watched him gesture toward my house. His finger jabbed in my direction 3 times. I stepped back and my heel caught on the garden hose behind me. The coffee splashed across my shirt as I stumbled. Raymond was already marching across his lawn toward me with the officer following close behind. The whole neighborhood had gathered by now and I could see curtains moving in every window on the street. Mrs. Dalton from across the road stood on her porch with her arms crossed and her head shaking slowly. The Kimura family next door to Raymond huddled together near their mailbox, whispering to each other. Raymond's face was red and his veins bulged along his neck as he got closer. His shoes slapped against the concrete with each angry step. The officer held up a hand to slow him down, but Raymond pushed past it. I backed up until my shoulders hit my garage door. The metal rattled behind me from the impact. A car alarm went off somewhere down the block and a dog started barking in response. Linda had followed her husband and her mascara ran down her cheeks in black streaks. She clutched a broken jewelry box against her chest. The lid hung open and it was completely empty inside. My throat went dry and I tried to swallow, but nothing happened. For 3 months I had believed Raymond was being paranoid about my security system. I thought his complaints about the cameras were just typical neighbor drama. My hands trembled as I remembered the certified letter he sent demanding I remove them. I had read it at my kitchen table and laughed at his threats about lawsuits and privacy violations. The paper had crinkled in my grip as I tossed it into the recycling bin. I thought taking down the cameras would end the conflict between us. My drill had whirred as I unscrewed each mount from my house. The wires had dangled loose before I stuffed them into a cardboard box. I remember the satisfied look on Raymond's face when he watched me carry the equipment inside. His arms had been folded and his chin lifted high like he had won something important. But now I stared at the police report the officer held out toward me. The paper listed 4 separate break-ins at Raymond's address. Each robbery happened on a different week. Each one targeted the exact same entry point that my cameras used to cover perfectly. Raymond grabbed the collar of my shirt and pulled me forward. The officer stepped between us and pushed Raymond back with both hands on his chest. Raymond's voice cracked as he shouted at me, "This is your fault." I stumbled backward and my elbow smashed against the garage door handle. The pain shot up my arm and I winced. Linda dropped the jewelry box and it clattered on the concrete. She pointed at me with a shaking finger. Her lips quivered, but no words came out. The officer picked up the jewelry box and examined the broken latch. He turned it over and a single earring back fell out and bounced on the ground. Raymond kicked at the grass and chunks of dirt flew toward my feet. His breathing was heavy and ragged. I reached for my phone in my pocket, but my fingers were too sweaty to grip it properly. It slipped and hit the driveway screen first. The glass cracked in a spiderweb pattern across the display. The robberies had escalated each time, and Raymond listed every stolen item while jabbing his finger at the air. First, it was electronics from the living room, then jewelry from the bedroom dresser, then cash hidden in the home office closet. The 4th time they took Linda's grandmother's ring from a safe inside the master bathroom. My pulse pounded in my ears as Raymond described the pattern. The thieves knew exactly where to look every single time. Mrs. Dalton shouted from her porch that she saw a van parked outside Raymond's house during the 3rd robbery. The Kimuras nodded and said they noticed the same vehicle twice before. Raymond spun toward them with his mouth hanging open. His wife grabbed his arm and squeezed it hard. The officer was already on his radio calling for backup and requesting surveillance footage from other homes on the street. I watched Raymond's expression shift from anger to something darker as he processed everything. His eyes moved between his destroyed front door and the empty brackets where my cameras used to hang. The detective arrived 20 minutes later with a tablet showing footage from a neighbor 3 houses down. The grainy video displayed a figure studying Raymond's house from the sidewalk. The timestamp showed a date 1 week after I removed my cameras. Raymond watched the screen and his whole body went rigid. The detective tapped the image and zoomed in on the figure's face. Raymond staggered backward and caught himself on my mailbox. The metal post bent under his weight. Linda screamed and covered her mouth with both hands. The face on the screen belonged to Raymond's own brother, who had helped him move in last year. The same brother who knew Raymond had pressured me to remove my security system. The same brother who had access to Raymond's house keys. Raymond dropped to his knees on my lawn and his hands pressed flat against the grass. The detective walked toward his car to make an arrest call. I stood there watching Raymond's shoulders shake as Linda collapsed beside him.